सारे आले बिखरी हुई उम्मत एक किस्म के आज़ा की तरह है। मुसलमान अगर किसी मुल्क में नमाज छोड़ने वाले की नमाज के छोड़ने से मुतासिर नहीं हो रहा है तो समझ लो कि उम्मत की इज्तिमाइयत टूट चुकी है।
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Welcome back to London to Nizamuddin podcast. We also welcome a new month. That's right, you guessed it, the month of Rajab. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us barakat, blessing in the month of Rajab and Sha'aban, and give us tawfiq to reach the blessed month of Ramadan. Today's Hayatus Sahabah is about enduring pain and difficulties in the path of Allah. Let's listen to Sheikh Saad recitation of it.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. تحمل الأمراض في الجهاد والنفر في سبيل الله تعالى. وأخي ابن عساكر عن أبي سعيد رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: ما من شيء يصيب المؤمن في جسده إلا كفر الله عنه به من الذنوب. فقال أبي بن كعب: اللهم إني أسألك أن لا تزال الحمى مصارعة لجسد أبي بن كعب حتى يلقاك لا تمنعه من صلاة ولا صيام ولا حج ولا عمرة ولا جهاد في سبيلك. فارتكبته الحمى مكانه فلم تزل تفارقه حتى مات. وكان في ذلك يشهد الصلاة ويصوم ويحج ويعتمر ويغزو. وعنده أيضا وعند الإمام أحمد وأبي يعلى من حديث أبي سعيد رضي الله تعالى عنه قال: قال رجل: يا رسول الله، أرأيت هذه الأمراض التي تصيبنا ما لنا بها؟ قال: كفارات. قال له أبي: وإن قلت؟ قال: وإن شوكة فما فوقها. قال: فدعا أبي على نفسه أن لا يفارقه الوعك حتى يموت ولا يشغله عن حج ولا عمرة ولا جهاد في سبيل الله ولا صلاة مكتوبة في جماعة. فما مسه إنسان إلا وجد حره حتى مات. كذا في الكنز. وقال في الإصابة رواه الإمام أحمد وأبو يعلى ابن أبي الدنيا وصححه ابن حبان ورواه الطبراني من حديث أبي بن كعب رضي الله عنه بمعناه وإسناده حسن. انتهى. وأخذ ابن عساكر كما في الكنز وأبو نعيم في الحلية عن أبي بن كعب رضي الله عنه بمعناه.
My dear friends and elders, the strange thing is that the difficulties people go through and endure and pain in gaining the dunya and its treasures and the problems that people have to deal with, they make an excuse. They say that it happens and you will have to go through this to gain dunya. This is normal. If you don't endure and if you become impatient, then how will you be successful in your tijarat, in your trade, in your commerce? And I say this by oath in the name of Allah, nobody makes a fuss or complains when they're going through any business transaction or ups and downs of any trade. No one complains about that. Because they do it as an act of farida, as an act of compulsory action for them. They see it as a duty that I have to maintain my income, so therefore I have no time to complain. They tie themselves. They have this understanding that whatever sweat, blood and tears I have to go through, it's for the sake of my family members. I have to feed them. And people have this misconception as well that the fazail of tijarat, the virtues of tijarat, is for gaining wealth and accumulating money. And in reality, fazail tijarat is like fazail nikah, is like the virtues of nikah. The virtues of nikah is there because to save oneself from zina and adultery. And the fadail of tijarat is there is to save oneself from begging from others. Otherwise, I can say in the name of Allah that the person who is gaining income through halal ways will still get the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be a businessman, to be a rich man without any deviances, without any interest, without any cheating, and just for that reason, just to gather wealth, he will be having the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon that person. Because his intention is not to feed his family members, but to accumulate wealth. And this is proven in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in Muntakhab hadith, that the person who he gets his income through halal wealth and the halal way, and the word used in that hadith is mufakhiran, mukathiran, that the intention is to boast with others big up his own wealth, show his bank balance to others, and mukathiran, and to increase his wealth as well. These are the two intentions. He will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while Allah ta'ala will be angry with him. And the other person who seeks halal wealth, and intention is that he wants to save himself from sawal, from begging from others, and to feed his family members, and to feed his neighbors as well, and to feed his relatives as well. He will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while his face will be shining like the 14th moon. This hadith is in Muntakhab hadith as well. I say again that person who endures pain and struggle and strife and tribulations and problems while gaining income to feed his family members, to feed his own children, yet the other person will gain more reward if he thinks about his children's akhirat, his children's hereafter, the life after death, and he has fikr for that. He will gain more reward for that than the person who is gaining halal wealth to feed his family members. But the difficulties a person goes through, the pain, the struggle, the blood, sweat and tears a person goes through while doing the work of da'wah by spreading the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that person has the audacity to complain. People still complain about that. The real thing is, my brothers and elders, that thing that becomes the purpose of a person's life, he will present his own life to that purpose. And remember, this is a usul, that thing which is the demand of the situation, demand of the times, if that person goes through halat, that person goes through difficulty, then he should not complain. The businessman, he goes through situations and problems, but he knows that the season is ripe, the demand is high. He will not complain, he will just go through it. The same way the agriculture, the farmer, he knows that the crops have to be cut. He has to go through difficulties, but the season is now to cut the harvest. He will go through that difficulty, he will not complain. The same way Sheikh Ilyas rahmatullah used to say, if we do the work of da'wah as a season, as a demand of the time, of the era, as the ghalba hal, then when a businessman is businessman for life, you will become a da'i for life as well, inshallah. If a person is in tijarah, the business, he puts himself fully committed, the same way that we have to fully commit ourselves for the work of da'wah. So therefore, difficulties in this path, people complain. What do? They complain about the difficulties, the shakayat. They do shakayat. Mourning. I will tell you that those situations, those difficulties which come from yourselves and from your own community and from others as well, it is a qabil shukr. It is worthy of doing shukr, not worthy of complaining. Every difficulty that you enjoy in this way, in this path, is qabil shukr. It is worthy of making shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not a place to complain. The person who endures through pain and difficulties in this path, the work of da'wah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen him to go through that difficulties. Think about that for a little while. That is why I say, that person who complains while enduring so much difficulty in the path of Allah, he is the most ungrateful person in my eyes. Because the measurement of shukr and being ungrateful depends on the amount, the greater the ni'mat is. That's how we decide. And that's how we judge the person who's more ungrateful. That is why I say that if a person goes through difficulties and pain in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he should compare it with the difficulties, sacrifices that the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam went through. He should straight away compare his difficulties. If he's gone to jail for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he should verify and look at the story of Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. And if he doesn't go through reflection of the stories of the Sahabas and the Anbiyas, then he will start complaining. And then when he remembers the takalif and the difficulties Sahabas and Anbiyas went through, and he's going through similar ways, then he'll make shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will say, oh Allah, I was not worthy of this, being put through so much difficulties. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have accepted to go through these difficulties. That the Sahaba went to that level of ihtisab, seeking reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the way we seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove all difficulties and to give us afiyat, the Sahaba is used to make dua for difficulties. This is the difference. We ask Allah ta'ala, oh Allah, give me sihat, give me health now. I want to become healthy now, oh Allah. And the Sahaba used to say, oh Allah, give me illness now. That's the difference. Why is the difference? Because of ihtisab. Because ihtisab meaning the hope, being hopeful of the reward. Listen, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing nafar, and know that the purpose of nafar, going out in the path of Allah, the main purpose is not qital, is not fighting. Qital is just one part of it. This is one of the qawls and the sayings of Mawli Ilyas rahmatullah alayhi. People have this misconception that the Sahabas went to the path of Allah to fight. The only purpose was to da'wah til Allah and to establish deen, iqamatud deen. Without doubt, qital was a means of as well. So in the path of Allah, any amraz, any illness, any difficulties, we have to endure those difficulties with patience and steadfastness. Abu Sayyid radhiyallahu anhu says that the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, that pain a person goes through, any difficulty a believer goes through, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of that, Allah will forgive all of his sins, remove all of his sins. Ubay ibn Ka'ab, when he heard this hadith, he stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, I make this dua, oh Allah, I ask from you such a fever, a special fever from you that will go onto my body straight away. And every parts of my body will feel that fever as well. And I want that fever to remain on my body until I meet on the Day of Judgment. Not for 1 or 2 years, until death. But then he made a disclaimer, oh Allah, I want such a fever which will not stop me from going to Jamaat prayer, for going to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from stopping me from going to Hajj or Umrah, and from stopping me from doing any ibadat and nafal ibadat as well. I want this kind of fever. After making this dua, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the fever while he was standing there on that spot. He didn't move from that place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that fever. And whenever he used to meet anyone with the handshake, they used to say to him, you got a fever, you got temperature. He had this fever all of his life until he passed away. And in that, while he had this fever, hot temperature, he used to go to the Jamaat prayer, he used to go to Umrah, he used to go to in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to go to all these nafal ibadah he used to go through. Sahabi asked the Prophet ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, all that difficulties that we go through in the path of Allah ta'ala, in amraz and all these takalif, what will you get through it? The Prophet ﷺ said, this will be kafara, there will be expiation of your sins. Ya Rasulullah, even if this illnesses or difficulties is as minor, is nothing. The Prophet ﷺ said, even if it's a thorn that pricks you on your feet, this will become a means of expiations and forgiveness of your sins. On that moment, Ubay ibn Ka'ab made this dua. Oh Allah, give me such a fever that will not stop me from going in the path of Allah, going to Jamaat as well. But we have to remember one thing, my brother and Allah, there's a disclaimer. The Prophet ﷺ said in the Sahih Hadith that لا تتمنوا لقاء العدو, that do not make dua, do not wish that you want to meet your enemies or go through any difficulties. Do not make dua for that. If it comes, then be steadfast and ask Allah Ta'ala for ihtisab, hoping for the reward of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Because we don't know that are we able to maximize our efforts while we're healthy or while we're ill. So we should not ask for that. But if it comes, then we should be steadfast. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us steadfastness on our deen as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us afiyat while we're going the path of Allah, and if it comes, we be steadfast on that as well. As always, brother, reminder that this podcast is just a supplement to the enormous work of dawah and should not be used as a substitute, as the work of dawah is amongst the people, not on a blank screen. Please like, subscribe and share with others. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.